How to knit your basic decreases on the loom, including passing a stitch over, slip slip knit, and knit two together. For today's tutorial, you will need a knitting loom. Today we will be using the Kiss regular gauge knitting loom with one spacer in between the pins and the pegs, your knitting tools, and a ball of yarn. Today we will be using Manos Maxima worsted weight 100% merino wool in the color Chamomille. There are three basic types of decreases that I want to cover in this tutorial. The first is going to be passing over a stitch. Passing a stitch over is a simple decrease that is commonly used in conjunction with slip stitches. Your pattern might call for you to pass a slip stitch over, which is sometimes abbreviated as PSSO, which is what we're going to be demonstrating here. Passing over a stitch basically means that you're knitting the previous stitch over the next stitch in that row. So let's say that you've got a slip stitch here, so I've slipped this stitch here and knitted the next stitch in the row, and now my pattern calls for me to pass that slip stitch over. I'm going to take this stitch here that I've just knitted, lift it off of the peg, and set it down on the peg that I had slipped. Then I'm going to scoop up the stitch that's on there and knit it off just like a normal knit stitch. And it's that simple. You've passed that slip stitch over. The other two decreases that I want to demonstrate in today's tutorial are the slip slip knit and the knit two together decreases. These decreases are commonly used in knitting and they're very easy to replicate on the loom. They're variations of the same stitch, but the knit two together stitch leans to the right and the slip slip knit stitch leans to the left. The first stitch we're going to demonstrate is the knit two together stitch. In this example, I've knitted over two stitches to where I want to do my decrease, which I'm going to do my decrease with these two stitches here. And I'm going to label them stitch 1 and stitch 2 so you know which stitch I'm referring to. So for step 1, we're going to slide off the stitch on peg 1 and hold it with our fingers. You can also set it on this peg, or you can use a cable needle, or you can use a stitch marker, whatever you want to use. I find it easy just to hold it with my fingers. Then you're going to take the stitch from peg 2, slide it off, and you're going to set it down on peg 1. Then you're going to take this stitch that you're holding with your fingers and set it down on top of that other stitch on peg 1. Then you're going to wrap your yarn around as if you were to knit, and you're going to knit both of these off at the same time. You can grab both of them and slip them off if you want to. Sometimes if you're a really tight knitter or you're working on something and you can't get both of them off at the same time, you can also knit them off one by one. It doesn't really make a difference as long as you're left with just one stitch on the loom. And then you can continue knitting your pattern as usual. To do the slip slip knit stitch, we're basically going to do the exact opposite. I've already knitted over two stitches and we're going to be decreasing with these two stitches. This is going to be peg 1 just as before and peg 2. You're going to this time grab the stitch on peg 2 and hold that one with your fingers behind your work, or a cable needle or a stitch marker, whatever you want to use. Then you're going to grab the stitch from peg 1, slide it over to peg 2, and then set down the stitch you're holding with your fingers onto peg 2. Then bring your working yarn back around and knit both of these off. And there you have it. And that's how you knit your basic decreases on the loom. Want more loom knitting tutorials? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow our blog at vintagestorehouse.com to get new videos and posts sent right to your inbox. Thanks for watching!